I get it now. See, the Packers just wanted you to think that they were bad. say, I'm on to you. That's clever. Welcome to a post-game episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where the Packers, they finally snapped their 5-game losing streak. Oh, yeah, that feels so much better. Now they move to 4-6, and Operation Save the Season is officially in action. We've been talking about it for weeks, and they just couldn't do it. But finally, they are back in the win column, dropping the Dallas Cowboys to 6-3. Now, how did the Packers do it? They did it in a number of different ways, a number of different fronts, and I'm going to cover just a few of them now. But first and foremost, let's talk about Christian Watson finally breaking out. We saw it all year, right? The athleticism, the speed. When he was on the field for brief periods, you saw how game-breaking it could be. But that, marred with the typical rookie drops and, some mistakes, it just was never able to come together. And even in today's game, you saw it in the first quarter. There were those couple of drops, but you also saw why the Packers have had such unwavering belief in this rookie and how much he can change the offense. It's such a big deal to have his speed out there. And we saw it today with the 3 touchdown catches, even some of the contested catches that he was making. I mean, this is a rookie who's sometimes dropped the ball when he's not even covered, and now making some contested catches. Was it perfect out of him? No. But do you see why he was supposed to be one of the saviors of this receiving room? Today, it finally came together for him, and he is a bona fide part of this offense moving forward if he could just continue to stay healthy. Aaron Rodgers today also played with a lot more composure. It seemed to get rid of a lot of the flaws in his own game that we had seen over the last couple of weeks. This, while not being the vintage Aaron Rodgers of 450 yards, 4 touchdowns, like the high-flying offense, it was uber efficient. I'll give you his stats in just a couple minutes. A very efficient, methodical game out of Aaron Rodgers today. Kind of a throwback to really the last 2 years. Maybe not 10 years ago, but the last 2 years when he won MVP. That was the Aaron Rodgers that we've come used to seeing. And on the flip side, how about the defense? The defense coming through, making stops when they had to. Did they still give up some? Yeah, totally. Of course they did. But the defense made some of the biggest stops when they had to. I still take issue with some of the scheme. I don't know why in the sweet goodness you've got cornerbacks playing 10 yards off. Still we talk about aggressiveness, and at times today they got more aggressive, and at times you still... But today, my friends, today is not a day to be angry. We can get re-angry later this week. Today is a day just to be happy that the Packers are back in the win column after taking down the Dallas Cowboys in overtime, 31-28. So, one other thing that I want to do here real quick before departing tonight is just dive back in. I said there were 6 keys to this game for the Green Bay Packers, and I want to check in on how they did with those 6 keys. Number 1, I said that they had to shut down the Dallas running game. And did they? Well, the overall stats for Dallas. Tony Pollard had 22 carries for 115 yards and a touchdown, and then Davis, his backup, had 5 carries for 38. Did they shut down the running game? No, I would say conclusively they didn't. But both against Dallas's pass and run, defense made the critical plays when they needed to. That was kind of the big thing of this game. When you needed the defense to make a stop, they did. There were times there where it got real fragile, where it was still real concerning, where they were playing too passive. But at the end of the day, they did it. I also was really happy defensively to see that there were a number of more exotic packages today. Even a cover zero. Now, what the secondary was doing on the cover zero, who the hell knows? Because even Greg Olson was baffled by what was going on. But nonetheless, they called a cover zero. They called things that they generally don't, which is really important for one of the keys that I'm going to get to later. But such an important adjustment for this Packers defense, letting these hyper-athletic guys play to their strength. Such a big deal. So he said we had to shut down Tony Pollard and the run game. We also said that they had to turn off the middle of the field because that's where Dak has hit most of his hay. And they didn't really do that either. But again, they made the stops when they needed to. So point 2. What did the Green Bay Packers have to do? They had to run the ball. Where Dallas's defense could get exposed was in running the ball. And they finally did it. Aaron Jones at 24 carries. Oh my God, if they just would have played like this for the last month. But they finally did it today. 24 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown on the ground alone for Aaron Jones. Then he got 13 carries for 65 yards from A.J. Dillon. Whew, it finally worked. Over 200 yards on the ground, spread out across 37 carries from these two guys. That's it. That's it. That's the offense. You did it. You took it to week, 10? But, you did it. So, now, what else did they have to do? For the Green Bay's passing attack, key 3 was shut down Micah Parsons. Don't allow the NFL's leader in sacks to get after Aaron Rodgers. Don't allow him to see color, as we identified was a problem in his game from the last few weeks. Now, Dallas did get 2 sacks today. Neither one was by Micah Parsons. And I have to say, at least on the initial watch-through on the telecast, the offensive line held up against Dallas's front. Again, a step in the right direction. The Green Bay also, for only the second time this year, had their preferred number 1 offensive line out there. So a huge step in the right direction for both health and competence. You saw what this was supposed to be. And that led Aaron Rodgers to an overall day of 14 of 20 for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is efficient Aaron Rodgers. It's just good to see it back, right? This is what the offense was supposed to be all year. I'm not opposed to having them run the ball more than you pass it. But then when you do pass it, it has to be productive. There's been all these complaints all year about just run the ball, right? Become a run-first offense. And then the people who always oppose that would say something to the effect of well, they have to be pass it. Of course you have to pass it somewhat. It's a necessary component of the game. But the problem is, when you're completely balanced and your pass attack does nothing, you might as well run it more anyway. And so today, we saw 37 carries overall from Jones and Dillon, and then this hyper-efficient day from Rodgers, because when they actually dropped back to pass, it actually was efficient. It worked. The decision-making all the way around was better. Hell, even Sammy Watkins made some nice plays today, and I'm going to be getting to him in a minute. And then Christian Watson, again, just another necessary shout out. Yeah, he only had 4 catches and 3 of them were touchdowns. Got kind of MVS kind of stat line, right? But, man, good to see. Now, speaking of Sammy Watkins, my point 4 was get Sammy Watkins on the bench. I was so sick and tired of the last few weeks of seeing Sammy Watkins and Aaron Rodgers being consistently not on the same page, seeing Watkins just look this broken shell of what he was years ago in his prime, and he's not even that old. But Sammy Watkins did play today. He did play, I don't know, I'm going to be very interested to see what the snap counts were for the wide receivers tomorrow. I really wanted Amari Rodgers to play more wide receiver than I believe he did here. They did keep Watkins on the field a lot, and he was their second leading receiver. He had 3 catches for 47 yards. The nice thing that you saw today, even if he didn't look explosive on the field, because, I'll see that tomorrow in the rewatch, but ultimately, I can't say he looked tremendously explosive, even from what we saw, but he made catches when they mattered. Even on one pass that Rodgers very much admitted was on him. It was not where it should have been. It was behind him. It should have been in front. This was in the second half of the game. Watkins pulled it in and held onto the ball. He wound up 3 catches, 47 yards. Yeah. If he can at least be competent and be on the same page as Rodgers, then yeah, okay, fine, play him. But what we saw the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that's not good enough. You know? And then you've got Watson, you've got Lazard. Samori Toure was basically invisible today, which frankly, in one of my fantasy leagues, I was going against someone who had Toure, so like, selfishly, I'm not terribly upset, but it just worked out, right? So, next point. My point 5 was Amari Rodgers needs to stop being the punt returner, and holy crap. I mean, everyone's been calling for this for a month, right? And that's been one of the frustrating things about this Packer team, just as an aside here for a minute. It just has felt like the fans have been ahead of the team all year long, and it feels so stupid to say. The team knows more about football than any of us will ever know, right? And yet there's been things that have been so blatantly obvious. I'll talk tomorrow a bunch about Rudy Ford and moving Darnell Savage into the slot. People have been calling for that for weeks. Ever since back when Rudy Ford filled in for Adrian Amos and showed a spark to the defense. Well, now, look what it does across a whole game, right? His speed, it's his tenacity in tackling, moving downhill against the run game, not allowing things to come to him, but him pushing forward. It's better to see. And in this, that's why it's so frustrating, right? There have been things all year that fans have been calling for, and then the Packers finally do it. They work. One of them is Amari Rodgers, punt returner. He needs to... You can't write off a third-round pick in his second year. But let the man focus on what you drafted him to be. Let him go play offense. Earlier this year, it sounded like he was completely banned from offense so he could focus on special teams. Well, flip it and reverse it. Let him go focus exclusively on offense and get him away from punt returner. Try Kylan Hill there. I mean, yeah, you put in Keyshawn Nixon after Amari Rodgers' muff almost cost us the game. Because holy crap, I mean, you could feel it. You could see it. That fumble completely turned the tide. But Green Bay battled back from adversity today, something we haven't really seen yet this season. And you've got Amari. It's just not working. Let him go focus on offense. You put in Nixon there in the second half of the game. When he caught that one above his head and then just straight up like held it out with one. You can't do that either as a punt returner. And I'm sure Bisaccia is going to have words. But they made the right call. It's just they did it too late again. So it's going to be interesting to see how punt returner moves forward. Last point 6 before I get out of here and go enjoy my night. Point 6, they had to replace their losses. Rashawn Gary out. Devondre Campbell out. Eric Stokes out. Like all the guys on this team who've been out, they could not allow any one of those spots to become a gaping hole, either through scheme or through the backup. And what did they do today? Well, McDuffie played a bunch, and McDuffie did not play poorly at all. He really didn't, and he hasn't any time that he's filled in this year. It's just he does have physical limitations. He's a lighter inside linebacker who can get bullied in the run game, and we did see that. Now, last week he played very, very well in the run game, but when he gets blocked, it's tough. He's got a little bit of Oren Burks in him that way. But still, I wouldn't call him this gaping hole of the defense. And they did scheme around McDuffie sometimes too. Again, specifically in the cover 0 example comes to mind. There were other times that, they let Quay just be the only real inside linebacker on the defense. Rashawn Gary, did they miss his pass rush? Yes, absolutely. But did they dial up more blitzes than they typically do? Yes. They tried to cover for it. I mean, just Eric Stokes being out. So they finally moved Savage to the slot. Yes. Folks, this is what it's all about. We have endured the crap. Mike McCarthy came home, got the warm ovation he deserved, and got the loss that we all wanted. This. Sometimes you just need a really good game to remind you of why you root for them in the first place. So, I will be rewatching the game tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow evening with another video to recap this game. Folks, enjoy this one. Go have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful night. And today of all days and every single day forever, go Pack Go.